There's a secret that people who've stopped suffering know, and they're not telling anyone. Not reducing their pain, not managing it. They ended it. They're not meditating more, not thinking positively, not reading another self-help book. They discovered something so fundamental that everything else became unnecessary. And the strangest part? You already know it. You've always known it. But the moment I say it, your mind will try to reject it, dismiss it, file it away as something you've heard before. Carl Jung spent his entire life trying to get humanity to understand one single insight. Just one. He wrote thousands of pages, treated countless patients, descended into his own psychological underworld, all to communicate something that takes less than 10 seconds to say. But here's the paradox. If this truth lands, truly lands, not in your intellect but in your bones, every self-help book you've ever read becomes unnecessary. Every guru you've ever followed becomes redundant. Every search you've ever undertaken reveals itself as a strange loop. I'm about to tell you what Jung discovered. And if you really hear it, this might genuinely be the last video you ever need to watch. Here's the secret. You have never experienced reality. Not once. Not for a single moment of your entire life. What you call reality, the people you meet, the situations you encounter, the world you navigate is not happening to you. It's happening through you. More accurately, it's being created by you. Jung called this the psychic reality, and he considered it more real than what we call the objective world. Think about this carefully. You've never touched raw reality. Everything you've ever experienced has been filtered, processed, and interpreted by your psyche before you became aware of it. Your unconscious mind, with its complexes, its shadows, its buried memories and repressed desires, sits between you and the world like an invisible film projector. You think you're watching life. You're actually watching a movie your unconscious is constantly creating. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. You're not just the audience. You're the director, the screenwriter, the casting agent. You chose the actors. You wrote the scenes. You determined the genre. But you forgot. Somewhere along the way, you forgot you were making the movie. You sat down in the theater of your own creation, looked up at the screen, and started believing it was happening to you. This is what Jung meant when he said we live in a psychological simulation. Not a cosmic matrix, not a spiritual illusion, but a deeply personal construction that we mistake for external truth. Two people can witness the exact same event and walk away with completely different realities. Not opinions, realities. One sees betrayal where the other sees liberation. One experiences attack where the other experiences invitation. Same event, different films. Why? Because they're not seeing the event. They're seeing themselves, projected outward, reflected back. If you truly understand this, not as a clever idea, but as a visceral recognition, something shifts permanently. You stop fighting with the screen. You turn around and look at the projector, and that's when everything changes. Here's what Jung discovered. That explains why your life keeps repeating the same patterns, the same disappointments, the same inexplicable attractions and repulsions. The unconscious doesn't keep secrets. It can't. It has to express itself. But it can't speak directly, so it speaks through projection. It takes everything you've rejected, denied, or forgotten about yourself, and it throws it out into the world like a psychological ventriloquist. Then it makes those rejected parts appear to be other people, external situations, random events. This isn't mysticism. This isn't the law of attraction dressed in psychological language. This is precise mechanics. Jung identified three primary projections that shape almost every human experience. The first is the shadow. These are the parts of yourself you've deemed unacceptable. The anger you've buried, the selfishness you've hidden, the darkness you've denied. Where does it go? It goes onto other people. That person who irritates you for no rational reason, they're carrying your shadow. That public figure you despise with inexplicable intensity, they're wearing your rejected face. Jung said it plainly. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The second projection is what Jung called the anima and animus, the contrasexual element of the psyche. This is why romantic obsession feels so overwhelming. When you fall catastrophically in love, when you can't stop thinking about someone, when their presence seems to complete something missing in you, you're not seeing them. You're seeing your own unlived potential projected onto their form. They become a screen for your own undeveloped self. This is why relationships that begin with obsession often end with disappointment. The projection eventually falls away, and you're left facing an actual human being who never was who you thought they were. They couldn't be. They were never really there. Only your projection was. The third projection involves complexes. These are the psychological knots formed by unprocessed experience, usually from childhood. A complex is like an autonomous personality living inside you, with its own agenda, its own triggers, its own way of hijacking your behavior. And here's what's crucial. Complexes create situations. The abandonment complex creates scenarios of abandonment. The rejection complex manufactures rejection. The unworthiness complex constructs circumstances that prove unworthiness. Not metaphorically, literally. Jung documented case after case of patients whose external lives were precise mirrors of their internal complexes. Change the complex, and the external situation changed. Not through magic, through the mechanics of perception, behavior, and unconscious communication. One of Jung's patients came to him convinced that everyone in her life was trying to control her. Her husband, her colleagues, her friends. Even strangers seemed to carry an agenda of domination. She felt surrounded by puppet masters. Through analysis, Jung helped her see something she couldn't see alone. The controller wasn't outside, it was inside. She carried a massive, unacknowledged need for control that she had repressed completely. Because she couldn't own it, she projected it. Every person she encountered became a screen for her own denied power drive. Here's what happened when she finally integrated this shadow. When she admitted to herself that she wanted control and stopped pretending otherwise, the external controllers vanished. Not because they changed, because she stopped projecting onto them. She withdrew the film, and the characters disappeared from the screen. This is the insanity of how most people live. We stand in front of a mirror, see something we don't like, and try to reach into the glass to change the reflection. We fight with people who are only reflecting our shadows. We chase lovers who are only carrying our projections. We struggle against situations that we ourselves are unconsciously creating. Jung watched this tragedy unfold in patient after patient, and he realized something devastating. Most human conflict is people fighting with their own reflections. Wars are shadow projections at a collective scale. Political hatred is mass projection of the denied self. Relationship battles are two people attacking their own unconscious material while believing they're attacking each other. Once you see this, you can never unsee it, and you can never participate in the same way again. This brings us to the most liberating and most terrifying insight Jung ever articulated. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Read that again. Let it land. What you call destiny, bad luck, karma, the universe testing you, it's not external. It's you, creating, unconsciously, then experiencing your creation as if it were happening to you. That relationship pattern you keep repeating, not bad luck in love. Your unconscious casting the same role with different actors until you get the message. That career obstacle that keeps appearing in different forms, not an unfair universe. Your psyche constructing the same lesson in different costumes. That feeling that something is fundamentally wrong, that happiness is always just out of reach, that you're missing something everyone else seems to have, not reality. Your unconscious preventing you from finding externally what can only be found internally. Jung worked with a woman who had been married 5 times, 5 different men, 5 different backgrounds, personalities, professions, and yet somehow all 5 marriages ended in the same way, the same dynamics, the same betrayal, the same abandonment. She came to Jung convinced she was cosmically unlucky in love. The universe had cursed her. Some external force was sabotaging her happiness. Jung showed her the truth. There were never 5 different men. There was one pattern, wearing 5 different masks. Her unconscious was directing the same film over and over, casting different actors in the same role, creating the same ending, because something in her needed to repeat this drama until it became conscious. When she finally saw the pattern, when she stopped blaming the 5 husbands and started examining the one constant herself, the pattern broke. Not because she forced it to, but because consciousness itself dissolved the unconscious program. This is what Jung meant by fate versus free will.